And now we turn to Europe. Can the Union rise above rhetoric, act strategically, and claim its rightful place on the global stage? And most importantly, can it protect itself during these challenging times? This is the defining question of our time. Guiding this critical conversation is Jelena Joković, editor and journalist at Radio and Television Montenegro. Jelena, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Sofia. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our panel, Europe's Moment of Reckoning. Please join me in welcoming our speakers. Thorsten, co-founder and director of the Global Public Institute in Berlin with expertise in global order, security, technology, and EU-US relations. Megi Fino, Deputy Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of Albania, with a legal background in international and immigration law and experience in European integration. Welcome. Marek, Head of the Security and Resilience Program at the International Center for Defense and Security, with 2 decades of experience in national security, military intelligence, and international operations. Welcome. And Péter, Sztáray, State Secretary for Security Policy at Hungary's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, former representative of Hungary to NATO, with a long career in diplomacy and defense policy. So, as Sofia said, Europe today stands at a crossroads, facing war on its borders, economic and energy challenges, rising populism, and questions about its global role. So let us begin with the challenging security situation in Europe. I trust the gentleman will not mind if we begin with the lady. So, Mrs. Fino, taking into account the ongoing tensions and border violations in Eastern Europe, do you personally fear for peace on our continent?
First of all, thank you. It's such a distinct pleasure to be with distinguished panelists and in this forum, and it has some perks being a woman. Yeah. Being the first to speak, but so absolutely, I think we already heard a bit from the opening of this forum about the challenges, and it's something that's been echoing for a long time now. The thing that perhaps brings us close or keeps us, working towards overcoming these obstacles is EU's credibility. For Albania, it's quite easy in the sense that we've always been a country who has looked towards the West ever since the fall of communism. We are staunch supporters of the Euro-Atlantic integration of the whole region. And I think the fact that we have been focusing so much on some difficult, comprehensive reforms in the country, precisely, also to overcome the obstacles that the European continent is facing right now, it's a clear vision and it's a clear commitment on how we think we should go forward with this. But absolutely, we need also credibility from the European side.
As for the security, do you believe that the tensions ongoing can prevail and that we should be worried as a continent?
Worrying is something, but I think the most important thing is taking measures and precautions.
What are the measures that NATO has taken so far?
Well,
how do you assess them, actually?
For our side, I can say that for us, 100% alignment with the EU CFSP and CSDP is one thing. Something that we've been committed towards for a long time now, even before the accession negotiations started. It's about, yes, it's a country with small resources, but still trying to, punch above its weight when it comes to unity in defense sector. Working with what is becoming now the most important thing, AI and digitalization, and not against it. And I think for us, that's also been something that's been proven helpful. Be that in defense, we're trying to also modernize the defense sector, but also with regards to the EU accession negotiations, such as translating the EU acquis and the First Minister of State for AI. So I think taking all of this into consideration is not just about being worried, more than actually being resilient, actually showing that, yes, there are these challenges, but the way that we can overcome them is by focusing on this unity.
It is connection, to sum up, connection between the allies and the EU as a whole.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Mr. Kohv, as we have already said, NATO is facing extraordinary challenges in protecting its allies bordering Ukraine. Some analysts argue that the reaction has not been timely enough. As the expert in security, would you agree? also coming from Estonia, Baltic country?
Not necessarily. I think that NATO's reaction has been quite adequate and very timely. But we have to also separate those late incidents where we saw drones flying into the Polish territory, Russian fighters violating Estonian airspace, and also what we have seen in the Denmark or other Nordic countries. So these are actually all three very separate incidents. So I think that NATO is actually well prepared for the kind of incidents we had in Estonia, so where Russian fighters actually violated the Estonian airbase, and the response was clearly very fast with Italian and Swedish and Finnish fighters also responded very quickly. But
was it a surprise? Was it a surprise for you, for the Estonians, this violation of your airspace? Has it happened before?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is
so you are prepared.
Yeah. This is the modus operandi what Russia is doing, and we in the Baltic states, in Estonia, have seen this for decades already. So I think this is not a surprise for us. Of course, the scale and the frequency of the incidents is something which is maybe somewhat unusual, but we have to also focus what is going on in Denmark or in the Nordic countries, and I think these drone incidents there are more related to internal security matters. So as we are speaking about building the military deterrence or investing a lot to the defense capabilities, we also have to realize that Russia is attacking us in Europe right now in the internal security domain. So we cannot forget that we also have to invest into the police capabilities and the internal security services.
Thank you, Mr. Benner. In your opinion, how is Europe handling the current security crisis? And was this the test for the alliance from the Russian side?
I think we face an ongoing test. And first of all, congratulations on 15 years of To Be Secure, and thank you for the invitation. And I do very much think that we can learn from the countries who experienced ongoing transformation ever since 1989, because this adaptability and willing to rethink things we very much need in Western Europe. I come from Berlin, and usually it's the colleagues from the Baltic states that say we don't do enough for security and we're not well prepared, and the Germans who are kind of, in a sense, sweet-talking things. Maybe this morning it's the other way around, because I don't think, at least in Germany, we're well prepared, and we are on the way to re-establish deterrence vis-à-vis our enemies. Right now we face an unprecedented security crisis in Europe.
Sorry, what prevented you for preparing previously in previous times? I mean, the threats are known for decades. What prevented Germany?
Wishful thinking, I guess. You know, I interpreted 1980...
There were some other priorities you would like to say?
Yes, of course. I mean, preparing for war is not a nice thing, and you much rather do something else. But that's exactly what we need to do. We need to prepare for war in order for war not to expand to NATO territory. And I do think we very much need to become more agile and learn, for example, from Ukraine, which has been kind of so swift at adapting to the changes in technology in warfare. Our procurement, at least I can say in Germany, is way too slow. And these drone incidents, I think we shouldn't overestimate them in terms of the importance. But to my mind, what they show is that we don't have a cost-effective way of dealing with them. Using F-35 fighter or expensive fighter jets to go after drones that are worth a few €1,000 is a bit ridiculous and not sustainable. So we need to innovate very quickly and become able to deal with these threats.
Yes, and NATO is planning to build some drone wall on eastern borders. Do you think that it would be a much better solution than for the planes that you are just talking about?
Yes, I mean, drone wall is a ridiculous concept. I think there's no drone wall that we'll have. But we need to become, like Ukrainians do that, we need to become better at intercepting drones with more cost-effective means. But we also need to think about economic security much more forcefully. China is bankrolling Russia's war machine, but China is also cursing us due to its monopoly on critical raw materials and critical materials that threaten our defense industrial base, threaten our very industrial base. So we need to address both the kind of deterrence and security and the economic security measures.
So this is a great introduction for Mr. Sztáray. What I'd like to ask you is EU countries should invest more in their own defense, even at the expense of social spending. What do you think about it? And is it crucial at this moment?
Well, first of all, many thanks for the invitation, and it's really good to be back to TBS. Congratulations. I don't think that the two exclude each other. I think social spending can go hand in hand with higher spending on defense. And Hungary is very much pro-European defense development. That's why we joined all the programs in the European Union. That is about capacity building. Europe in itself is not able to assure credible deterrence. And this is, in the foreseeable future, the situation. This will not change. But that doesn't mean that there cannot be situations where Europe has to act on its own. For example, monitoring the Mediterranean, there you need European capabilities. And if you build more European capabilities, that will contribute to NATO's collective defense too. So I think these two are very much in harmony, and that's why Hungary, as a supporter of collective defense, we are also a supporter of more European capabilities.
And as for the US role in this situation, how do you assess it?
Well, we need a long-term presence of US military in Europe because, as I said, Europe is not able to defend itself. It is not able to deter any kind of threat or challenge coming from any direction.
You think Europe is not able to defend
not
itself?
Not able, and because of that, we
why
need NATO.
Why is this happening? Why isn't Europe able to defend itself?
Because we have limited defense capabilities. We have come a long way since the Wales Summit 11 years ago. We have come up to 2%, many countries almost to 5%. We made a pledge at the Hague Summit this year. Now we have the 5% target, and we will be able to reach that. So I think Europe has come a long way, has done a lot, but still that doesn't mean that without the US we are able to have credible deterrence. And that's why we need NATO, and that's why we have to concentrate on Article 5 of the Washington Treaty.
So, Mrs. Fino, what about Albania? Do you have any plans to invest more in armament?
Yeah, well, a little bit of context. We're talking about a country who, right after the fall of communism, was, bent and committed to get rid of all of its military and defense. Of course, also as being, a member and joining NATO. So in that sense, there's been a mind shift completely for Albania. Now things are changing, of course, all over Europe, but especially in our country, given this historical context. So now it's a priority of the government to, of course, modernize the defense industry. And we are also trying to, as I mentioned, even within the EU and NATO, to elevate our support on drones as well and on digitalization. So yeah, we are committed on that.
Okay, and as for the expenses, how much is Germany actually paying for a NATO as an annual fee of your GDP? Is it
this
1.
annual fee thing
1.5,
is
something
a bit
like
of
that?
a funny concept that you have taken over from Trump, it seems. We don't pay fees for NATO, but we invest in our defense capabilities.
Yeah,
and we have long neglected that, and we're now on our way to kind of, rebuilding our military with, restocking the supplies and getting more manpower into our military. Right now, I think we spent a good 2%. We want to go up. That's the pledge in order to not have the guns versus butter problem. For the time being, we kind of abolished the debt brake for the military spending. So we have a kind of an open tab on military spending, and we can do whatever it takes. But the question is, will we change our ways we do procurement, for example, in order to actually get bang for the buck? Will we actually spend collectively smartly in Europe? Because if just every country continues to spend for itself, we will not spend efficiently. And will we convince enough young people to join our military, right, on a voluntary basis, in order to fill the ranks of the German army?
So another important question related to this, of course, is the question: what would it take for the EU to be seen as a credible geopolitical partner? Mr. Kohv, can the EU be geopolitically strong without common defense pillar?
So I think, yes, I think when we are speaking about, I will go back a little bit about deterrence. So deterrence is about capabilities, credibility, and communication. So 3 C's. I think we actually have the possibility to build up this credibility, but this has to be coming from capability. So this is something that I think that EU has money, EU has resources, EU has talent, but the problem is, I think that we are not committed to scale up the production, and also I think that some of the countries doesn't have this healthy fear. I mean, if I'm looking at the numbers from Nordic, Baltic, and Central Europe countries, then I see that willingness to defend their own country is about 50%. But if I look the numbers from Western Europe and Southern Europe, they are well below 20%. So the proximity to the threat actually also translates into how you are prepared to protect your country. The question about what Europe can do, I think we have to move from project-based thinking into the capacity building, as the colleague said here. And also I think that we have to mention Ukraine here. I mean, in Estonia, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, Estonian Defense Ministry actually proposed that each, back then it was NATO country, but we can now discuss even that each EU country should attribute 0.25% from their GDP to Ukraine. This creates actually around 40-50 billion euros annually. We can measure it in a different scale also. If we are speaking that we are under enormous threat in Europe, if each European citizen allocates 8 euros per month, and I was staying in the hotel, 8 euros is 1 beer at night. So 8 euros per month also creates 40 billion euros annually. So this is something to think about, and I think that we also have to focus on the single market security. We have to keep in mind that all those hybrid attacks what we are seeing are targeting our critical infrastructure, our well-being organizations, and so on. So we have to focus that we have all the measures in place that will protect the ports, the communication lines, and so on, because many of undersea cables are actually built during the peacetime, and nobody thought that this is something that will be attacked. So for the future projects, we need also to think about if we lay down the cables under the seabed, that they will be also protected from hostile activities.
So, besides the common security pillar, Mr. Sztáray, the most very important issue that European Union is considering is reorganization. So Hungary has several times vetoed the start of EU accession talks with Ukraine. Many in Europe argue that by blocking these talks, Hungary is weakening EU unity at a critical moment. How do you respond to this criticism?
Well, I think that's very important, but still on the previous issue, we have a different view on that. What Marek said, that we have to give our capacities and our money to Ukraine. Instead of that, Hungary says that we have to concentrate on our own defense, because that's the way how we can defend ourselves together. And many countries gave their ammunition stockpiles and their weaponry to Ukraine, and I think this is not the right way, because that weakens Article 5. And I think we have to concentrate on ourselves first and then support Ukraine. On the other issue, well, each and every country that wants to join the European Union has to live up to the conditions. There is a very serious conditionality. Montenegro, Albania, others are in the middle of the process. They have been there for 20 years. And it's a very difficult process, because you have to align your legal system to the expectations of the European Union. And you have to give up, you have to give concessions in every area. Now, Ukraine, which has been a candidate country only for almost 2 years now, still is not there to start accession negotiations, because a lot of things have to be done inside Ukraine. And Ukraine is at war, so it's very difficult to think about starting accession negotiations when a country is at war. I think after the war, that will be a different situation.
Do you
but
think
right
that
now,
EU accession could change things in terms of peace?
I mean, many things will change if peace comes, and that's why we advocate. We have been advocating for negotiations, peace negotiations, ceasefire for a long time. But until we get there, it's impossible to talk about EU negotiations. And we also have a specific Hungarian issue, that's the question of the national minorities. Ukraine has limited the rights of national minorities since 2015, 2017 in several laws. We are in direct negotiations with Ukraine about that. We have an 11-point list. We only want to get back there to 2017, what was the legal framework at that time. But we have not yet agreed on that. So until that, it's impossible to talk about the launch of negotiations.
Mr. State Secretary, you said you want to keep your weapons to yourself in order to be able to defend yourself. I understand that.
Not only to myself, to all NATO. To all NATO.
It's a contribution to Article 5. I totally get that. There's a trade-off. You can't really just send weapons to Ukraine and be defenseless yourself. But are you then now in favor of this new instrument that's being created to use the 300 billion in frozen assets that we have in Europe in terms of Russian assets in order to fund loans to Ukraine so that there's enough military support that can be procured? Because right now Ukraine is also our line of defense. You might think that Russia is not after you because Mr. Orban is good friends with Mr. Putin, but other countries have different opinions on this and very much see the value in Ukraine holding the line and having enough material to defend itself. Are you in favor now of creating this instrument?
Yes, of course.
Well, now you covered a lot of things, but first of all, I think
Yes.
it's a dangerous way ahead to use Russian assets, because that will have a very serious and long-term impact on the international monetary system, you know? So if that can be done, then a lot of other things can be done, which will really hurt the West.
But Mr. Mayor said
really
we won't confiscate, we will just use it for a debt
I'm afraid
instrument.
I have not yet concluded on this. Okay.
And that it would be repaired after the war to Ukraine.
I think it's a dangerous way ahead, and it's not only us who are against that, it's Luxembourg, Belgium, who are really involved in handling those assets, you know. They don't support it anyway, so it's not about Hungary.
So, Mr. Benner, you want to add something to this
And one more
topic?
thing, that the reason why we want to concentrate on Article 5 is not because Mr. Orban is a good friend of Mr. Putin. This is a ridiculous accusation, you know. It's not about that. We want to have pragmatic relations because we know that after the war, anyway, Russia will be in our neighborhood. It's a huge entity. It's a big nuclear power. It's a permanent member of the UN Security Council. So whatever we do, Russia will have an impact on our security, you know. And cutting all the channels, all the communication, this is not a reasonable way of looking into the future.
I agree with that.
We want to have security, we want to have stability, we want to concentrate on NATO's defense, but that doesn't mean, I mean, when they say that we have to protect ourselves in Ukraine because the next ones will be us, I think that's not true. That's not true. We have to defend ourselves, and we have to support Ukraine in many ways. But if we give all our ammunition and whatever to Ukraine, that will only weaken us. And the Russians can differentiate between NATO countries and non-NATO countries.
And those are really delicate situations, I mean, and as for the decisions that are brought in the EU, do you think that unanimity should stay as one of the instruments for bringing some important decisions, for example, new EU members, etc., or
yes, I'm deeply convinced, and a good example is NATO. Again, NATO, it's really difficult to get to consensus. It's a cumbersome process, but when you are there, then all the member states are behind it politically, and the implementation too will be much stronger. You know, so saying that the EU's weakness is because we have unanimous decision making, I think that's not the right thing, because if you leave behind 2-3 countries and you decide on foreign policy issues, that will only weaken the unity of the European Union.
What about veto? That you have
I mean, we agreed upon the rules.
used several times.
Veto, I mean, no, not veto. You have to build consensus, you know. We are not vetoing, but if we have not come to the consensus, then there is no decision. That's the rule of the European Union in CFSP, in most of the areas in CFSP and CSDP. So you don't have to accuse someone that he vetoes. He doesn't veto. He's not yet there with the consensus. And the countries have to make the effort to find common ground. And it is possible on many issues. It's really possible.
So, Mr. Benner, you'd like to add something as for the EU reform?
No, I just wanted to add, to be clear, that it's very dangerous, but when we start to speak about how difficult or dangerous it is to confiscate Russian assets, and that we have to deal with Russia in the future. I think we have to very clearly understand that what we are seeing right now is that Russia is actually changing the borders of independent country by force. And this is unacceptable. We cannot tolerate this.
I agree.
So that's why we have to support Ukraine. And I think that Ukraine is right now fighting also our war. And we already are benefiting from Ukraine. So it's not fair to say that we should only protect ourselves. We are seeing that Ukraine will very heavily come in to help Europe with their experience on countering drones. And I just want to add shortly on this counter-drone activities, because I think we of course need to learn from Ukraine what Ukraine is doing well, but there is danger of over-learning from Ukraine, because we have to realize that Ukraine is at war and our countries are not at war. So we are not able to copy all the activities Ukraine is doing during the wartime that we should do during the peacetime. So there are many limitations, and I agree that drone war is actually a bad definition, but we also have to realize that protection against drones and other air threats has to be layered. So it means that we have to very layered systems, from really basic machine guns to very high level fighters, rockets, which are very expensive. But we have to not only think about the cost of this one drone, which is flying maybe 10,000 euros, but we have to think about the target. So if the target is actually some kind of, I don't know, the energy facility, which costs maybe millions, then it's reasonable to shoot it down with fighter rockets also.
Okay, now, Mrs. Fino, from the point of view of a candidate country like Albania, what does a stronger geopolitical EU mean? And do you think that a delay of enlargement can actually cause instability in the region?
Yes, we've been actually echoing this for a long time, even before 2022, that enlargement is important, and there should be a focus on our region as well, precisely with regards to the European security and stability. But I want to also link this to the previous discussion on the credibility, because I think European credibility is existential. It's not abstract, and credibility is when policy meets capability. And I think Europe's strength and security has been tested daily after 2022, be that with in terms of cyber attacks, infrastructure, drone incursions. And I think the important thing is also to look at it also from the aspect of defending truth and transparency, which is as vital as defending your borders. And in that sense, I think that's why it's very important to also have the Western Balkans, and enlargement be a focus and be an important topic, and at the very top of the agenda, as we have seen it happen now. But of course, this is a momentum that we cannot take for granted, and that we should continue to use going forward. We have a timeline, with the European Commission. We heard from Montenegro as well, has been doing
and
very well.
And also from Brussels, that this is the best geopolitical moment for the country's candidate to join the EU. So did Ukraine have to happen to realize this?
Listen, I think the process is political, but it's also technical. So it's of course a merit-based process, but it also has to have the political will for it to happen. And by political will, of course, it means candidate countries as much as the EU member states. Now, it's unfortunate that perhaps it took, a war in this continent for the focus to be sort of reshifted to the Western Balkans region as well. But as I mentioned, we have been talking about this since 2003, Thessaloniki promise, but we've been talking about this and the delicate situation for a long time. And I think it's very important now that, what's done is done, but to focus on this momentum and to bring the candidate countries, as part of this, because it is a big part of the European security. And also with this regard is the reason why we've also been championing this gradual integration aspect of the process as well.
Mrs. Sztáray, so the aspirations of the EU candidate countries are the same, to join as soon as possible. But somehow, that's my opinion, the dates that are given are a bit, questionable. Why? Because some of the countries which started negotiations long ago are now at the same pace, like some others, like Moldova, Ukraine, Albania also. So do you think that the same standards are for all the countries, and as for reforms, political, and all the others that are taken into account in this regard?
Well, that's a very far-reaching question, but to summarize it in a nutshell, we think that the EU has made a strategic mistake by not having already integrated countries of the Western Balkans, because in terms of stability, security, also economically, the Western Balkans is a strategically important region for the European Union. We can continue later maybe to the east, but first this is our homework. And Megi is right, because the process of EU accession is twofold. On the one hand, it's all about conditionality, it's very technical. But on the other hand, it's a political process, and at the end of the day, it will be a political decision, as it was in our case, in Hungary's case. 10 countries at the same time joined the European Union. Were they all at the same level of preparation? No, definitely not. But it was a political decision that the EU has to integrate these countries. Now, I think it would be very important to make the next step, especially with Montenegro and Albania, because they are ready, and we have to demonstrate that the process is credible, and that if you perform as a candidate country, you will be able to join and to become a full-fledged member. So I think that's very important. And when they talk about the internal reforms of the EU, I don't think that has to be a condition for the next round of
we disagreed before.
Just
now
be brief, because we are out of time.
Now we really agree, and at the same time, we need to do exactly what you said. And the European Union, we haven't talked enough about that, needs to reinvent itself, rebuild economic strength, technology, do everything that's in the Draghi report, because without that, everything will be nothing. And as we saw in the negotiations with Mr. Trump, the European Union folded just because we were not able to defend ourselves and were not innovative enough, and we need to change that.
Thank you very much. Now, if someone from the audience wants something to ask our guests, please. no questions, so that would be all for this panel. Thank you very much.